All right, we are recording. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining. It's really a privilege to be together, actually, after a long time. And for me, it is a great honor to be here with Norbert Zuzeski. And it's for me, it's a tremendous opportunity. I consider this a great moment for my life to spend this kind of time with Norbert. And Uh, thank you everyone for joining. I think people will keep joining as we go along. But I just want to take a few moments to just share my appreciation for Norbert. I met Norbert in 1998, and yeah, he's a founder and president of DataBox Technologies in New York. And I had the privilege and honor to work for him at his firm and report into him. And I had just moved to the U.S. From Kuwait, and so I'm thankful that I got my sponsorship to be here in the U.S. and will work here through DataVox Technologies. So my family and I, we owe a lot of thanks to Norbert for everything that he did for us. And I'm really happy today to be here. I came from a very product-centric background, right? I knew how to sell products, in other words, right? When I joined DataVox Technologies, it was a pure consulting firm, and I think I had to go through transformation myself. And during that time, Norbert's guidance and mentorship was invaluable to help me, so to say, switch my mind from a product centric person to becoming a service oriented person, and why services are important, and why one needs to have that kind of a consulting finesse to be able to communicate to the customer and articulate the benefits of the things that we do for our clients, and then show customer obsession through those things. And you know uh, I believe that has been one of the most transformative and formative times of my life, of being and working here in the US since 1998. And we are here today. The relationship has carried on all these years. And many a times in my life, I've reached out to Norbert for guidance in various forms and manner. And I'm really happy that we can just open our hearts and talk today. I want to ask him a few questions today, and
Let's
also
answer
be,
that.
also be on the listening side. I also want to say welcome to Rodney. Hey, Rodney, welcome. Rodney and I, we work together for Norbert at DataVox. So the relationship goes back many, many years. And Norbert, I want to say a special thanks to you from Gabe. Uh, Gabe sent me a message. He's unable to join today, but he has told me to express to you his thanks and appreciation of the opportunity to work at DataVox and work with you, and the things that he has learned. He's told me that he's going to write a separate thing and reach out to you. So I'm not going to steal his thunder, give him his time and opportunity to express himself. But he did say thank you, and he also stated that he's unable to join. But anyway, but it's good that we are all here. Maybe before we get started, Rodney, you want to say a few things for Norbert, and then we kick this off. Meanwhile, people are also joining.
Rodney, if you do, just keep the praise low, okay? Because you're setting the bar way too high.
We can't hear you. You're on. You are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I don't know if you can sum up my relationship with Norbert. I'll try to do it some justice in the few seconds I have. But I think Norbert was key in the overall architecture of Rodney Callum, right? I think he's more. I would call him more as a father and a friend than just an acquaintance in this business. I think he's brought forth, growth in me as an individual. He's contributed to the success I have in my life and have had in the last 20 years. So as Ashish had said, you know, we've been a family for a very long time. So we've been through a lot of stuff together. I continue to look to Norbert for guidance and support, and I think he's just a phenomenal person. So I think that, like every great man, there's a great woman named Grace that stands beside him.
Mhm.
So I think that she completes him and makes him a better person as well. So I just think he's, you know, from a technology perspective, he's been there, done that, probably done it 3 or 4 times, forgot the first 3 times, and now did it 2 more times, right? So again, phenomenal resource, phenomenal person, helped guide me and was instrumental in my overall success and continued success in my career. So I don't think I do him any justice by the praise that I've given him. I think it should be substantially more, but nonetheless, I think we're all here and we're all, you know, touch shoulders with the people that we're supposed to touch shoulders with. And I think those people elevate you and allow you to continue your journey and path. So I thank you, Norbert, and I thank you, Ashish, for inviting me. And as always, Team Norbert, right? So thank you.
Yes, I echo your sentiments. I am with you, Rodney and Norbert. I truly mean it. You know, so let's get, you know, I want to give a round of applause, right, to Norbert. Thank you, Norbert, for who you are as a person, really. Thank you for who you are as a person. Thank you for taking interest in others. Thank you for being there for me as an individual, as I was really in the formative years of my life in the consulting world, you know, and the guidance that I received from you, you know, continues to live in me today. So I would like to say that the seeds that you have sown in my life, they continue to reap a good harvest. And I will always, always, always be extremely grateful and thankful for you, you know, and thank you very, very much, you know. So
Thanks, Rodney.
all right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
want to
by
get
the way, and we love you as well, Norbert. So we'll leave it at that.
yeah. I was,
Say that, Rodney.
you know, last night I was thinking I wanted to put my DataVox t-shirt on, and believe me, I still have it. But now it's already too late. I'm not going to leave this session and go and change and come. But
Yeah, don't do it in front of the camera, please.
definitely, I'm not doing that. But it's good. All right. So I think one of the things that I learned, you know, maybe we can switch some gears, right? There is an analogy that Norbert shared with me: sand, gravel, and a rock. And let's start there, right? And you know, I'll just share that analogy and the things that I have learned, right? In life, this may sound a little philosophical, but it's true. In life is like sand. Too many things we do, right? Little grains of sand. And some of this can actually bog us down where work is concerned, doing too many things or handling too many things at a go. And so Norbert told me that, he says, Ashish, you have to move from the sand to the gravel. Gravel is nothing but small rocks. You know, it's not as granular as sand, but you're still doing a few things. You're not really in the sand, but you are you are doing a few things that really you like, that you want to grow. And the challenge, he says, the quest in a career for any professional is going to be coming out of the gravel and finding that one rock to stand on. And he asked me this question: what do you want to be known for? You know, he says, find that rock, and that will be a quest for you to find that rock and stand upon that rock, right? So moving from sand, which is doing too many things, to gravel, which is doing few things, and then going to the rock, or getting to a place where in life and career where you are known for that, you know, so to say, few very, very important things. So having said that, Norbert, I would like to turn this over to you, and maybe you can elaborate for us and the listeners today, you know, how this has helped you as a professional in your life, and why one should think so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a perfect analogy, not just for business, but for life at large. We all kind of live in a confined space, right? The world around us is our confined space, and only so many things fit into it. You can fit that space with a lot of sand, and then again, analogy that Ashish brought up, And before you know it, there are millions of little itsy bitsy things going on around you, each of which you're going to lose track of. They're probably not very important by themselves. And your entire life is filled with these little nuances, these new little things that individually aren't very important, but completely absorb you, right? So extract out of that one extra layer, right? That space, instead of filling it with sand, if you fill it with gravel, something just a little bit bigger than sand, there's fewer of them, there's less things to focus on. And you know what? When you fill that empty space with gravel, there's still a lot of space around it to be filled with sand. So you're not going to completely ignore the little things, but you're going to at least see those things that are a little bit bigger, a little bit more substantive, and will kind of hit you in the face that they have a little bit more priority than all of the sand around it. Right? And then taking that extrapolation even a little bit further, again, that same limited amount of space, if you fill it with sand and gravel, and all of a sudden a big stone comes up, you have no room in that space to put that big rock. So again, reverse the order. Fill it first with stones. Identify those things that are the most important, both professionally, personally, in your life, your family, and so on and so forth. Identify those big things, put them into this confined space. Around those things, you still have room to put gravel. And you know what? Around that gravel, you still have room to put sand. So as long as you look at life from that top-down perspective, identify those things that have the most meaning to you, both personally, professionally, and all things that are important to you. All the other things are going to fall into place. There's another saying, don't sweat the little things. It's kind of analogous to that saying. So the trick is to be astute enough, have the wherewithal and the personal development enough to be able to identify what those important things in life are. But once you've identified them, everything after that begins to kind of follow and fall into place by itself. And too many times, I come across folks who are scattered, who are working on a million different things, and they all begin to look like they're a mess. They're not able to compartmentalize, those things that are really important that they should be focused on for a limited amount of time until they're solved, addressed, shoved aside. And they tend to focus on the sand. And they completely lose focus of those things that are a lot more important that in the long run, will have a much more significant impact on your professional career growth, your personal development, your family life, and so on and so forth. So the other skill that's very important and related to this rock, pebble, sand analogy is the ability to compartmentalize and identify barriers or boundaries around things that you're currently focused on. Give those things your complete and full attention. Don't let the other things in the peripheries distract you. Once you've done what you need to do with the thing that you're currently focusing on, open up that compartment, put it in your check-off list, and identify the next thing that you need to compartmentalize your activities around and do that. Otherwise, again, you're going to be dealing with a universe of mess. And it's a place that none of us enjoy being in, and certainly can't be very productive in. So maybe that's a way to kind of elaborate a little bit on this analogy that you started our conversation with, Ashish.
Thank you, Norbert. Sometimes I've felt like my life is a spaghetti, everything just gets all mixed up and messed up, right? And you made a very key point by using the word compartmentalize or prioritize, right? I would like my life to look like a waffle. Everything has its own box, right? Let me ask you this question. How does one do this successfully? Or what are the things that have worked for you to really compartmentalize? Because sometimes, no matter how hard we try in life, things do roll into each other or they bleed into each other. I would really like it, and I do strive in my life to compartmentalize, right? But then sometimes things just, bleed into each other, or some things are overflowing, and it's hard to really gain that kind of a focus. And I'm sure that this kind of a challenge is not just unique to me. Any individual will face it. What guidance can be received from you, and what has worked for you?
Yeah. So I'm going to make the assumption, and I think it's a very valid assumption, just by the fact that some of you got up early this morning and some of you are taking valuable time out of your Saturday, that all of you are good people, right? And what comes with being a good person is you hate to say the word no. And no, regrettably, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to spin it, is a super powerful word that really helps you in what Ashish just mentioned as the difficulty to try to compartmentalize your activities. You have to be able to identify, who and when to have the strength to say no to. And by the way, it doesn't always infer someone under you in terms of reporting structure or someone above you in your corresponding structure, or even in your family, your kids, your wife, and so on and so forth. The word no allows you to pause. Saying yes all the time puts you at risk of falling very quickly into the sand trap, of having to deal with minutia, things that are not important. Saying no allows you to take one step back. No has a lot of different ways of being said. It doesn't have to be harsh. It doesn't have to be mean. But the skill in saying no is a skill that most people need to develop, and say it in a way which makes the other party understand that what they're doing is actually for their benefit, because it allows you to focus on something that is more important and probably impacts them as much as anybody else for you to successfully complete. Learn how to say no. Okay.
I think it's interesting, Norbert, your comments bring me back to, 15 years ago at 115 Broadway, where you used to come by my office and the sheesh was out in front of your office, and you would take these little yellow stickers and scratch what was important for me to accomplish on those days. And you had to put a story behind it, where at one time you had been working with someone that Solomon Smith Barney, who was a mentor to you, that would take these little sticky notes and put some of the things that he thought was important for you in your life. And I used to come in the morning, I'd do about a 2-hour commute into Manhattan every day. And I used to get there in the morning, and Norbert was always there first. There would be about 2 or 3 sticky notes on my desk. And I used to sit down after rushing in to the city to try to get myself together to focus on the day. And as I would look down at my desk, there was my focus for that day. So it was very interesting. While I had a left and right limit, and I would continue to move within those limits, there was always a more of a guiding focus that would say, well, you're to your point, you're clogged down with the sand. Here's the few rocks that you need to focus on for today, for this week, and for the month, and for the quarter. So I think I always remember it. I always remember the plaque you had on your desk that said success is defined as time well spent. So I think all those things, and when you focus and you compartmentalize and you look at what you need to do to guide yourself towards that objective and that goal, is key. So I think we all need that North Star, that individual that will bring you back, whether that individual is yourself, a family member, or a friend, to bring you back to those guiding principles that support you standing on that rock. So again, I thought that was a phenomenal thing that you've done for me in the past. So I thank you.
Yeah, well put. Appreciate that. It's another way to prioritize. You necessarily have to create boundaries, right? The compartments, and then again, anything that's not within that compartment at that particular point in time. Tomorrow might be different, but for today, if it's not in that compartment, then it's appropriate to say no to those people who are asking you to divert your attention. Especially if you're in a leadership position, right? If you're purely receiving instruction, maybe the situation is a little bit different. It's hard to say to your boss, no, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do, right? I don't want anybody to get into trouble. But, as leaders, and I'm again making the assumption here that most of us here have a certain level of leadership responsibility. Your leadership includes the skill and the ability to know when to say no.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. So thank you, Norbert. I think I remember one day very distinctly, 1st September 1999. My wife and I were expecting our 3rd son. And that evening, I took my wife to the hospital, Jamaica Hospital in Atlantic Avenue. And
I've been there. It's not a nice place.
My son was born on 2nd September at around 1:30, Jason, 1:30, 1:35 in the morning. And after my wife and the son were brought into the room to rest, I called Norbert. I wanted to leave him a voicemail that, I've just become a father for the third time. And around 2:15 a.m., I picked up the phone and I called, 212 something 4300. I still remember. And I called, I wanted to leave him a voicemail, and he picks up the phone. He says, DataWorks Technologies, Norbert speaking. I said, what? And I want to, see, I'm talking as a heart of a leader, right? A leader works hard. Norbert set the example. He just didn't make us work, right? He was a true shepherd. His leadership style is a shepherd. He leads by example, and he led by example. And he took time to speak with me for almost an hour or two that night, and tell me so many nice things as a father I should be thinking of, etc., etc. And I think what I found in just staying on the theme of how to compartmentalize, right? As a leader, he could compartmentalize aside his responsibilities, right? To relate. A leader relates. He related to me where I was, and he took time to know me. How many people do we know in our life that really take time to know us for who we are? And that is a trait of a good leader that I continue to celebrate and treasure, that I've seen in Norbert. So I want to just go into the next question on that. The importance of diving deep in life, in anything we do, right? And why it is important to dive deep, and to hone our skills deeper, right? Like the T. I want to go deeper, then I want to go wider, right? Like the alphabet T. Maybe Norbert, you can share with us some of your life experiences. And you worked hard, you still work hard, but you work hard by prioritizing, right? I don't want to be working hard by doing 100 things that really don't take me anywhere. And I learned that from you, and I applied it in my life, and it has brought me this far, wherever I am today and whatever I'm doing. The success and the growth that I've enjoyed in my own career has been some of the pearls of wisdom that I have gleaned and learned from you. So maybe you can share with us little thoughts on those, and it'll be.
So, one thing that kind of comes to mind in response is, when we go out and venture to solve a problem, right? Address a situation, take advantage of an opportunity. There's things that we see at the surface, right? The problem manifests itself in a specific way. The opportunity is just kind of, staring us in the face. Let's go for it. There's a time at that moment to pause and start asking the most powerful question in English and any other language for that matter. And the question is why? The question is, why is that opportunity presenting to me now and not yesterday? And why didn't it show up tomorrow? Why did that person, share that opportunity with me? That problem, why has it, manifested again itself today? And this is, again, the going deep part, right? Going to the root of asking the question why. And it's not a single question why, it's a chain of why questions. Why did it happen today? Why did that person address this with me? Why did that person get themselves into that situation and now became a problem? Why? All the way down until such point where you feel comfortable that you don't only know the surface of what you're dealing with, but you know the deep root of that particular circumstance. What that allows you to do, first and foremost, and this is super important to absorb, and that is it creates a sense of empathy. What Ashish just iterated, he is having a child. I mean, how can you not be empathetic to that? But and I'm not talking about sympathy. People confuse the two words sometimes. Sympathy is a woe is me, how bad things are. That's kind of sympathizing with somebody's pain and feelings. Empathy is more of, again, that deep understanding of the root cause of what just transpired and why did it transpire the way that it did, and being able to actually connect with it. we can go into a whole litany of the kind of skills that you have to develop as a person, as an individual, as a human being, to be able to empathize with others. And that might or may not be beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today, but assuming that you have it within you to truly feel what the other party is experiencing, then you are projecting a certain level of understanding that then can be transcribed into actionable steps that follow. Compartmentalized, focused on that one particular instance, but you do need to absolutely, again, go as many steps slow as you possibly can to understand the root cause of the situation that you're dealing with, that one unique thing that you're going to be focusing your attention for the next 15 minutes, hour, 2 hours a day on. That gives you the perspective, and it creates the human connection between you, the person that's trying to help the other person, and you can then do it with a common language that is in the form of empathy. Empathy is a language. Okay, master that, and you can become a very successful problem solver. Differentiating that from someone who becomes an opportunist and takes advantage of such circumstances and people's sometimes weaknesses. People tend not to like to expose themselves too much, answering the truth of the question why. Why did I, get myself into that situation? Well, because I made a mistake. Or why did this happen? Because I did something I wasn't supposed to do. Oh. Folks generally, find it difficult to expose themselves to their weaknesses. As a leader, you need to be able to crunch through that, and through kind of intelligent questioning, using that why question, penetrate to the deep root cause of a situation, notwithstanding the natural hesitancy that you will get in people opening up to you. But once you've accomplished that, once you've gotten through those first couple layers, your probability of success in solving whatever it is that the circumstances presented you with are exponentially higher than had they been if you were just skirting the surface. So does that you think address it, Ashish?
Yes, thank you, Norbert. Yeah, I want to share, let me share a slide. There is a quote that I really like by Norbert. Let me just share my screen here quickly. I hope everyone can see this. Right, I like this quote that Norbert has put together, innovator's reality, right? Reality number one. And I'm going to read this for us. First, imagine the future, then place yourself there and pull events and their outcome towards you. If you push tasks towards your imagined future, you will make decisions along the way which may steer you toward an outcome and future different from the one you had imagined. Right? So, Norbert, can you elaborate more behind this? Because from here on, right, for the next decade of my life, I want to go somewhere. I have a dream in my mind. I believe everyone listening to us has a dream, has a vision in their life. How does one do this, and how this truth of this, the truth behind this statement has worked in your life?
Yeah, so to kind of transcribe this into slightly different context, what the statement tries to differentiate between is push versus pull, right? And we're all goal-oriented, right? We're all oriented toward outcomes. We can, I think, generally visualize what the positive outcome that we seek looks like, right? Whether it's a career goal, in the next 5 years, I want to be department head of this particular team, right? Or in the next 5 years, I want to acquire this kind of a skill that is going to take me, a progression of steps to get to. But kind of visualize, once I'm in that position, what will my life, what will my career, what will my family look like? And again, this applies as much to work as it does to family and personal circumstances and the like. So if you can, and again, with our imagination, again, I assume here as leaders, we all have a relatively strong imaginative pull. We can visualize what circumstances will look like for us once we are in that position. Okay, we are now occupying a new space. We have these people reporting to us. I'm going to need to project a certain level of authority or empathy for these people. That's one of the things that I can visualize. I'm going to be working on 5 different new projects. Those projects are probably going to be in this space because that's where I'm directing the next 5 years of my career development to point me toward. Right, in my family, I'm going to have one more child. Our family is going to have to move to X, and we're going to have to start worrying about X, Y, and Z, education for kids, and so on. So kind of put your frame of mind into that future point in time in your life and your professional career. Once you can visualize that space and time, right, begin to look at what will get you there, as a factor of time going back, right? And it is a lot easier, I have to tell you, if you know where you are, pretend that you're actually there already, to find all the things that you're likely to have as obstacles in your path that you're going to have to deal with at some point in time to shove aside to allow you to reach that place that you're already in your mind in, right? It is very easy to identify things that can potentially go wrong. It's very easy, much easier, I should say, to find solutions to those things that will in some way obstruct that path toward this vision that you're already in as far as your future is concerned. Instead of the opposite, right? Before I do that, I'm sorry. Now, very important, that is your vision, okay? That is now your sole and unique focus. That is where for a fact you're going to be in 5, 10, whatever years, into the future, right? Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine your today. Your vision is looking forward as opposed to in the future looking backward. If you're sitting here today looking at, I'm going to want to get there eventually, there's like 10 different paths that I can probably take to get there. Every one of those paths has a certain probability of getting you to that outcome. And you're going to be making decisions that you don't really have a very clear picture of whether they will truly align with that end destination. And you're going to be making mid-course changes that may completely steer you away from what that outcome you had imagined to be. So again, when you're starting to push tasks toward your imagined future, you're necessarily going to end up, and more likely than not, a place very different than otherwise if you set your goal and pull toward that goal all the actions in the next few years of your life. My case is unique to me. Everyone on this call has their own unique situation. Mine is at the age that I am in, the place that I work, the friends that I surround myself with, my family situation points me to a place and time 5 years down the road that is more of a comfortable type of place, more than a career-oriented place. So I can visualize it. I can see that in my mind's eye. When I go to sleep at night, I know what 5 years from now are going to look like for me. And every day when a decision has to be made, the question that I ask myself is it taking me toward that place or is it distracting me from it? And I think, in my lifetime, I've learned to say no to people at the appropriate time. And I will say no if I feel that particular activity is not going to be conducive to getting me to my desired end state. So it may be subtle to some to try to understand this, but soak this in. Try in your spare time to visualize again what your future, whatever time frame you want to associate with it, might look like for you, and see if you can articulate in your own internal conversation to yourself what steps are likely to occur on that, and how will I assure that I'm going to stay on that path toward this place that I'm already in my mind. Okay, a little long-winded way of explaining this, but hopefully it came across.
Yes, Norbert, thank you. I want to, I want to open the floor if anybody has a question to ask.
And I think everybody might be muted, right? So you have to unmute yourself first.
Yeah, you can. If you want to, if there is anybody in the audience, if you want to ask a question, we are happy to take a question.
Norbert, I have a question. The future that you want to imagine, for example, that you're referring to, sometimes is not deterministic, right? I mean, you know what you know, and based on that, you imagine a future. But what about those non-linear things you wish you want to do, like start a company or take it to scale it up? Things like those are hard to predict and hard to imagine, right? So I know you've been a founder and you probably sold your company and moved on. So share a little bit of that thought process, right? How did you come about founding your company? How did you scale it up? When did you decide to sell? And maybe we can glean some of those decisions.
Sure. Yeah. So that quote from the previous slide, think about gravity. Gravity is a natural state and it always forces things to fall right to the point of lowest gravity, right? Um, in your vision, right? The vision is your gravity, right? It naturally will gravitate, pardon the pun. All things around you will gravitate toward that outcome if you position yourself to think and to behave and to act and to attract. Those things that don't fall to gravity, right? In gravity, you can catch something before it hits Earth. That's a distraction, but at some point in time, it's still going to fall down there, right? So as long as your vision is clear, attainable, right? In the next 10 years, I want to live on the moon. Probably not going to happen, right? That's not the kind of vision we're talking about. But make it real, make it something that you can realistically achieve, and gravity will work its magic. And trust me, I have numerous, cases to cite where that kind of thinking helped me personally, focus my attention on pulling things toward me, right? DataVox, going back many, many years. I mean, we were founded back in 1990, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, 96? Or even earlier? 92, I'm sorry. Was a, interesting set of circumstances that came together. And I'm not going to say that I was mature enough at the time to realize maybe some of the truths that now I'm kind of very comfortable speaking about. But at that stage in my particular life, it was I had nothing to lose kind of a situation, right? I left a company that was very good to me. It was a very large financial firm that happened to put a few dollars in my pocket at the end that I had to figure out what to do with, and I could invest it for my future, or I could apply it to something that will multiply itself over time. And I chose the first. And when I say I didn't have much to lose, when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, your outlook on life and your risk tolerance is, way, way, way out there, right? At age 40, 50, and 60, it keeps on, going down and down and down. So, everyone on this call, in your own personal situation, you will, clearly attest to the fact that you are either taking risks that are crazy risks because you can afford to make mistakes and you'll recover, whether it's financially or whatever, or you're much, much more resistant to, those types of disruptive changes in your life. So we started DataVox as an experiment. It could have failed miserably. I was fortunate to be in a service-oriented role in the first, 5 or 7 years of my career after college. So to me, it was kind of natural that we're going to focus our attention on a services-oriented set of activities. And we did. And my wife is Chinese. She likes to use the word luck a lot. Luck had it that I came across some phenomenal people in the very early days after I figured out that I can't do this on my own. And that, by the way, is a revelation in of itself when you're in your late 20s, early 30s. God, I can't do this on my own. And I brought in, folks like Ashish, folks like Rodney, who, they say that I changed them, but I think they probably changed me as much as maybe I've, helped them in their personal careers. The things they taught me in terms of, Norbert, it's not always the way you think. There are other opinions, there are other ways of looking at things. There are other kind of creative ways to approach problems. That's a testament to them and a couple other folks that were also brought in. Again, I'll call it luck. We had very, very, very few. I can't even think right now of a name of a person that I would not have hired again had the opportunity to present itself. So, if you've surrounded yourself with the right people, you are naturally going to learn from them. And if you have some impact on them, that's great also. But you personally, will benefit immensely. There's this concept of fast fail. Not everything in life works, right? Not everything works out the way that you'd like it to work out. It's a common theme in innovation, right? Where if you're experimenting, if you're in a lab type of environment, if something you're beginning to spend way too many cycles on and it's not producing, the kind of outcomes that you expect will be venture worthy, you got to let go of that very, very quickly before you absorb all your intellectual, financial energy and you have nothing left to lose. I mean, the analogy is if you're invested in the market and if you start losing on a position, you got to get rid of that dog as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you're going to lose your entire portfolio, right? And the same thing happens with people. Right? If someone isn't working, and some of us are more astute, some of us are a little bit less astute in terms of reading people, but if you see that something isn't working for you as far as relationship chemistry with the other party, sever that, because it'll hold you back. It'll hold them back. It'll hold them back from moving on to another opportunity where maybe a better chemistry exists. So I'm going a little bit on tangents here, but hopefully I've answered that question. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, maybe? Okay.
Yeah, Norbert, this is Rojo. One of the questions that I wanted related to what you just spoke about, it's always easy. It takes a little bit of an effort and conscious thinking to define that future, because it had to be very intentional. Have you had any situations where the future did not turn out to be the way you expected it to be, and then you had to change course?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, so life is what it is, and it's full of chances and successes and failures. Absolutely. All I am trying to articulate is that your chance of getting to that end place, that place of your vision, is much, much higher if you are, again, doing the pulling as opposed to pushing toward it. But I'll give you another maybe a little point here that might help is, in a role of leadership, again, whether this is leadership at work, leadership at home, leadership in your life, and any definition that you want to give to it, creativity is an absolute must factor. And what I mean by creativity is to have that ability to think and project and visualize and do the lot of what if analysis to ultimately come up with something that is realistic for you specifically, right? And people who have that skill typically come from places where they've had the opportunity to explore their artistic inner self, whether they have a musical background, whether they have some art and painting, whether they've practiced ballet in their youth, whatever it is, but something that has an artistic way of conducting yourself tends to impact the mind in a way where you're more amenable to look at new things and consider them in the light of your potential future vision than if you're a pure mathematician and you crunch numbers, to come up to that point in your vision. I love sailing. Sailing to me is an art. Rodney, sorry, but boating is not. Sailing is an art. If you travel the world, if you've experienced other cultures, if you've learned foreign languages, every culture expresses itself in a different way through their language. Knowing more than just one language allows you to think in a different dimension than someone who is singly linguistic. So as much as you want to focus on your career and you have a project today and it has a deliverable and time is precious, if you don't dedicate yourself with a certain carved out amount of your precious time to things that have creative components to it, pick up a hobby, do something in your spare time that practices your mind in a way unique and different from what you otherwise spend, 80 or 90% of your time during every single day. You're going to find that all of a sudden you're coming up with ways of thinking and projecting your future vision that is considerably more broad, that is considerably more kind of creative in terms of opportunity. And within that, you're going to find your particular unique space, right? So, always kind of look at that other way. Personally, again, I've adopted travel as one of my big hobbies, and there are many, many places that I've been to, and I was kind of fortunate my dad was a diplomat, so even in our early years, we did a lot of traveling, mostly around Europe. But even in those early years, and I say this for the sake of your kids, allow them to explore and be exposed to other cultures. It will help them tremendously when they get to your level of career development. Full stop.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That is so awesome. Anybody else?
I'll just add, I think, interestingly enough, I think we all look at our life, and I think the reality is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And I think that's something that we all as leaders and all as people that are focused within our career need to understand. When I look at firms and I look at organizations that do decisions by committee, and all essences of what they're trying to achieve might not always be the best approach. So I think fear will stop us. Norbert alluded to the fact that, you got to effectively see that vision. I think in the risk profile and associated with the fear of failure can hold you back. So I think that the intent is fail fast, be fearless, be smart, and understand the risk associated with what you're trying to achieve. But again, don't be so fearful that you don't take the shot.
Yes.
Yep, as Hamilton said it right on Broadway. I ain't giving up my shot. If anybody hasn't seen that yet, you must. It is a powerhouse of a story. Anyway.
So maybe Norbert, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So let's say you're in middle management, you want to go higher, and you talk about pull. I like that word pull rather than push. How does one build that personal gravity? And what I mean by saying that is, I want to hone in certain experiences under my belt. Say, yes, I've done it, and I want to expose myself to those experiences so that I can acquire skills or increase my confidence in those given area. And I like the aspect of creativity. But then Ravi also asked a very nice question, that everything is not going to be in a linear form, right? One day it's up, one day it's down, so sometimes it's hard to really strike a balance. But I have a picture as an individual in my mind of the experiences I want to expose myself to, right? How do I continue to maintain that pull? And once I can maintain that pull, then I think I can put my energies behind and start prioritizing or compartmentalize that. Yes, this is what I want to do in this is what I want to do, and go after. Maybe some guidance would be great.
Yeah, it's actually a lot simpler than it might sound on the surface. This concept of pull is a very, very powerful concept. Just pretend you are your goal, your vision. You've placed yourself in this future where you are leading a new team that has these types of responsibilities, right? You know that you lack the skills today to either maybe manage the team in terms of personal aptitudes toward management, and there's some maybe technical skills that you need to acquire in order to, again, successfully lead in that vision of yours, right? So you do need to certainly go through a deeper analysis of what are the things that are in the path toward your vision, right? But, and by the way, those might include courses, those might include personal encounters with other leaders that have some, sharing to do with you, that they may have some family ramifications. To be where you need to be, you need to move to, in AT&T's case is Dallas. because that's where the center of gravity is for that particular leadership function. So you identify all those things, and you begin to find the places within which that particular aptitude can be amplified for you, right? And basically you draw on that. But again, imagine the opposite. The opposite is you're sitting here and you're looking at your place that you eventually want to get to. And here's 50 different courses that your management just laid out for you. And you're saying, wow, this one kind of looks like it's really going to get me to where I need to go. But look how cute this one is. And it's going to teach me how to do some creative writing. Today I'm going to take this one, right? And guess what? You're off course already. You're already taking the path that is not the optimal path to where you want to eventually end up. And life is full of those types of distractions that unless you're being pulled like gravity, toward that inevitable goal that's already occurred in your mind, you're going to be constantly distracted by, the peculiarities of the day, the essence of a crisis that you're going to get engaged in. And maybe that crisis is totally irrelevant to you being where you need to be in 5 years, yet you're going to engulf yourself and spend an inordinate amount of energy and probably put you off course, right? So again, it's that mental way of looking at the path. And no, it's never going to be linear, absolutely right. But if it stretches too far, gravity will begin to snap back in and pull you back toward your desired course. It doesn't happen that way when you're pushing. Okay, gravity almost is a destructive force that aims in every single direction, and every single distraction pulls away from your center line. So maybe that's a way to answer that question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Norbert. Very, very, very helpful. Maybe if anybody from our audience has a question for Norbert, we can take a question. And by the way, when I spoke with Norbert, we want to do a series of this kind of a session, enabling session. I think it's in Norbert's heart, and it's also in my heart to really share this kind of a knowledge and experience to enable others. So you will see me reaching out to you via email or WhatsApp or any social media where we are connected to talk and learn further. So let me ask you, is there anybody else who'd like to ask a question? Otherwise, I do have one more question I want to ask Norbert.
Yeah, guys, don't be shy. I'm not sure if it's guys and gals, I'm not sure, but.
Norbert, obviously, if there is a pause, I'd like to take the airwaves. So, I've read the book on Steve Jobs. Okay, I'm perpetually inspired by these, founder stories. So Jobs once, he went to college for a major, but actually he took creative writing or calligraphy or something. The book talks about it and how that influenced his thinking. How to bring creativity into engineering. Right? It's his obsession for writing the chip numbers in the right way, even though nobody ever saw the chips, right, or the board. Right? He also went to India for a long time without any money. He just wandered about in the country. I mean, he took an adventurer's path, right? And when he came back, it somehow strangely influenced the way he perceived the world. I mean, he also took it to the edge where he said, I can influence the world in a different way. But regardless, I mean, there are things that you can systematically plan, take courses and get to, but there are things that you don't plan for. This is the adventurous way, if you will, that will help you grow even faster or in a different way. Have you had any such experiences, or how do you value those?
Yeah. And by the way, this paradigm that we talked about, pulling, pushing, it's not the exclusive way to live your life for sure, right? I mean, if your entire life is nothing more than a set of goals, objectives, and reaching them, goals, objectives, and reaching them, then you're a machine. You're an AI bot. You're not really participating in humanity, right? So, yeah, you need to obviously be conscious of the fact that things are going to be happening in the envelope around this plan of yours, that are going to present opportunities. But you know what? Each one of those opportunities at some point in time becomes a vision and a goal, right? I'm pretty certain. And by the way, Steve Jobs was a pusher, not a puller. You might find that kind of an interesting observation. He did it the hard way. He pushed toward outcomes that he had envisioned, basically crushing over obstacles in a very abrasive way. It's only because of his power and his intellect that he was able to succeed. It's not because he, had always the vision of what things will look like. So he's a abnormality, in this paradigm that we're discussing. But there are, geniuses like that around us that, can shape the world, and they basically defy norms, right? But for us regular common folk, as we identify these visionary opportunities for us to latch onto and pull toward, the envelope around them constantly shapes who we are as human beings, and out of that envelope, you're going to find, extracted. I'm going to pull toward this one. I'm going to pull toward this one. You're not working toward one end goal only. You're working toward many. You can't obviously just go blinders on and be single-minded. So if I implied that wasn't my intent. But within each one of those visions, there's that focus.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
And I'll also kind of maybe add as a maybe corollary to that is you're going to develop a strategy, right? As you're kind of aiming toward that end point, there will be some sort of strategy that you follow, and even that strategy is not going to be linear. Even those steps that you've identified as going to be helping you pull everything toward you, you're probably going to have to adjust over time, and being flexible. Not completely disruptive, but here, this is kind of an important point. If you, completely change your strategy mid-course, chances are you're going to have to also adjust your end goal. Right? If you, on the other hand, are committed to that end goal, by all means, do adjust your strategy, but do it in subtle ways, in such where you're still maintaining the path, but just maybe taking a slightly different, way around to get there. Maybe it's a acceleration, maybe it's a new obstacle they need to get around. If you're going to be completely, obstructing your strategy, chances are you're probably going to end up with a brand new end goal, and you might as well fast fail what you've been working on, saying that isn't it. I gave it a good heave-ho, but this is about as far as I'm going to be able to take it. Maybe I've over-visualized it, maybe I anticipated things to happen that never did. So let me start from scratch. And when I say start from scratch, it's not going to the same point and getting back on the same path. All right? It's completely now restarting your goal-setting objectives. All right? Start from a totally different new point, not from the same point, from a very, very different point. Move from Dallas to Atlanta. All right? And now I'm on a different course. So again, here's an application of fail fast. If you're not succeeding and you don't give it a flying chance in hell that it's going to succeed, fast fail it quickly and start on a new path.
Fair enough.
Fantastic. Thank you, Norbert. We are almost getting at the top of the hour, and for the allocated time, maybe one question that comes to my mind, and the ability to articulate, right? I think that's very, very important. And you alluded to certain fact about learning a new language, exposing yourself to new culture, and having more, openness to really not to put yourself in a box by your own plan, but also be flexible, right? So, but on the aspect of communication and being able to articulate, I think many people have that desire, but they are not able to articulate or put those data points together. And why it's that, I think articulation is so important. I have learned that over the last 10 years of my life, if I just look back.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that even till today I practice. I think about what I want to tell. I'm meeting a C-suite leader in a large corporation, what I want to tell, what I want to speak, what are the points I want to hit. right? What are the things that will make sense for him or her, the person I'm meeting? And I still take time to prepare. And I feel that maybe I'm still learning, and I want to continue to sort of say sharpen my skills in those areas. Maybe you can share some thoughts, right? The ability to articulate and use those facts and figures to bring that kind of speak volumes through that.
Sure. Yeah. So probably not news to anyone on this call, but the higher up in the business hierarchy, leadership hierarchy that you are having a discussion with, the more likely than not, they will not be swayed by facts and figures, but more by the context of a story that you tell them. And what I mean by that is folks typically get to the level of leadership that maybe even your contact is at, not because, again, they were great scientists or because they were, phenomenal mathematicians, but because they were able to, again, project a certain thought, into a story that then reverberated within the organization that they were beginning to lead, and all of a sudden created a following. They became aspirational leaders and moved up the chain of command. So basically, the higher up you go, the more storytelling, becomes the predominant mode of expressing, vision, strategy, and so on and so forth. So again, if you're speaking to an accountant, bring in your general ledger. If you're speaking to a chief technology officer, chief marketing officer, bring a story that analogizes a specific set of circumstances that you're trying to address, at this customer. We just did this, and it created this, phenomenal impact. And we, went to market, and we, created a marketing campaign, and tell the whole story of how is it that you've, been able to create an impact in a situation that probably is different from theirs, but their leaders' skills are such where they're able to mentally connect, a foreign story to their set of circumstances. So again, when you have that opportunity, as Ashish, has frequently, to get up to the C-suite, knock on their door, and have a, substantive conversation, come prepared with a story, right? Now, how do you develop stories? Again, this goes back a little bit to the creativity. In every single linear set of events, each one of those you can wrap around in a set of circumstances that created the step-by-step progress. Step two didn't happen until on one rainy day. Going a little bit off kilter here, but on one rainy day, we kind of came to a conclusion that we have to take this product and massage it in this particular way so it works better on a rainy day, right? And so on and so forth. Every step in the progress, created some component of a story that if you can just kind of capture and then weave into the story that you're going to be using in your presentation, you're going to capture the imagination of that C-suite individual in a way that probably your competitor isn't able to, right? Because they're coming prepared with, here's our stats, here's our figures, here's our market share, those are all nice, okay? And they probably might seal the deal in the end, but they don't open the opportunity for you. They don't create the spaces into which you can begin to inject yourself and find the opportunities for you, your firm. Can't do it any better than through storytelling. So ultimately, the same storytelling concept as you move into that leadership role is going to be something that you're going to want to use. When you project, your new strategy, your new vision, you try to, create a following and support for your vision. Again, you're not going to do it through facts and figures. If we do this, we will gain X market share. If we do this, we will impact our customers in such and such a way, whereas they will, create future opportunities for our company and so on and so forth. So that kind of a story will reverberate a lot more profoundly in a kind of pure PowerPoint presentation with a lot of numbers on it.
Fantastic. Thank you. This is such a wealth of knowledge and experience. Thank you.
And it works.
Very, very
Trust
well.
me, it works.
Yeah. Anybody else?
That's fascinating, Norbert, and thanks, Ashish, for asking that question. I have always believed that data and facts are very important, and that really conveys the point because we live in such a data concentrated world that we let the data speak for itself, right? And we're kind of moving into, yeah. I mean, and this is my personal thought, not necessarily that it has to be the right thing, but that is, let every decision be made from data and let data drive the decisions and insights. So it's fascinating that, Norbert, you said the storytelling aspect around that is very important. Now, the way I understand this, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not minimizing the value of data, but you're also emphasizing the contextual information around the data. And that's really the most important thing. And if you can tell that and convey it through a story, that'll deliver the message effectively. Is that right?
Absolutely. Data supports your storyline, right? At points in your storyline, you may want to digress to, dip into, so to speak, some facts and figures to support your storyline, but you want to very quickly get out of that space as soon as you've made your point and get back to continuing your story until you get to a point where you believe you and the other party that you're telling the story to are, like this and connected and are speaking, so to speak, or singing from the same songbook. So facts and figures are super important. Otherwise, you're, telling Alice in Wonderland stories. That's obviously not the objective. But they support the narrative. They are not a narrative.
Fantastic.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, so we would like to wrap this up very fast. I think this has been, at least for me, I can say this has been a very, very productive and beneficial session. Thank you, Norbert, for imparting wisdom.
It was fun.
It is fun, and we want to do this a little more often. We have Norbert and I thought through some of the topics, and he has come up with some very good suggestion. So for our friends who are listening to us, I would, please look out and support us, get the word out. Those who are hungry and to grow and quest for knowledge and to quest for personal development. I think this will be of an immense value that will take you somewhere in your life where you can't go on your own, right? So I believe in a fortress of relationship. My personal experience and knowing Norbert over the years, right? It has, he has been like a mentor, a fortress of relationship. I've turned to him over the past years and, sought his guidance and, asked him some of the questions that were important to me and my career, and I think there is an opportunity available for our listeners also to do the same. So please do spread the word around. And thank you again, Norbert. I want to personally thank you for always being there. I think that is one thing I know. You're always there. You're reachable. You have never been a glass house person. You've always been, you've been there where we were. And you are still there where I am and where Rodney is and others on this call, being there with us and guiding us and giving us this wealth of wisdom and nuggets that can take us beyond. So now I take it as a personal ownership that ownership is on me to drive this forward. How do I really build that pull mechanism in my life? How do I focus on those things that is going to take me from a gravel to a rock, that quest, and not get pulled into the sand, and be known for those few things. And also importance of the art of storytelling, as you rightfully mentioned, right? To build that skill and hone in that skill to be able to articulate and gain attention, and then strike influence through contextual intelligence, if I can just say it like that. Right? Contextual intelligence is so important. And thank you again. So I'm not sure if anybody else wants to say something in closing, but
well, I'll say something. This is addressed to both Rodney and Ashish. Ashish, I asked you specifically, don't make this meeting about me, and what did you do? You made it about me. You're not a very good instructions follower, but I really do appreciate the kind words, and it's obviously very gratifying to to hear that perhaps my life's work has had some impact on some folks. Super, very 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 happy to hear that. And Ashish, as you organize subsequent sessions, hopefully we'll find other topics that resonate in the specific topic set that we're going to be focusing on, and hopefully we'll find people who will want to spend some time with us. So looking forward to that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Well said.
Anybody else?